Parting ways on Friday night. Their star Damian Lillard made it clear that he wanted Jason Kidd as his successor. This endorsement not sitting well with Kidd, who formally withdrew consideration from the gig, saying Dame's public proclamation left him uncomfortable and feeling like he would put both Dame and Portland's process in an awkward circumstance. Stephen A., who should the Blazers target as head coach to keep Lillard happy?
Well, to answer the question, number one, it was right to have been Jason Kidd because that's who Damian Lillard wanted. Mark Jackson, yet again, I'm going to bring up that name yet again, our colleague and analyst here at ESPN. How the hell this man don't get interviews? It's just beyond me. It's just beyond me. Mark Jackson should be interviewed by Portland. Mark Jackson should be interviewed by Boston. Mark Jackson should be interviewed for damn it any head coaching job out there in the NBA, considering what he brought to the table. Max, I'll leave a couple of names to you.
I just want one name. They were on
my list. I'll leave that. Chauncey Billups is a name I'm going to throw out there as well. But let me get to this Jason Kidd thing, because I will remind everybody, I know I'm doing First Take, and I got Stephen A's World, and I'm a very, very busy man in studio. But I have been covering the NBA for a quarter century. I do know a lot of people, and I know everybody involved in all of this stuff with Jason Kidd. Everybody. Now, let me say this. Jason Kidd's name comes up. Mm-hmm. Damian Lillard throws out his name.
Gave him an out.
They're Oakland natives, both of them. They've known each other for years, okay? That's why Damian Lillard did that, because he respects the brother and he knows him, all right? And then all of a sudden, all this noise comes out about Jason Kidd's past. Molly, domestic violence, 2000, 2001, I believe it was, DWI, 2012. I would remind everybody that since that time, no other incident has happened. Jason Kidd has had not one but two head coaching jobs in Brooklyn and Milwaukee. But somehow the Knicks job comes up, people start talking about his past. Okay? The Lakers job, because they wanted him before Frank Vogel, people start talking about his past. Now Portland comes up and people start talking about his past. And I find that a tad bit odd. How all of these stories just suddenly percolate right when the time when it seems ideal that the brother's about to get a head coaching job. At some point in time, it's like this. Excuse me. What about merit? The merit of what you do? Because Jason Kidd has been happily married for over 10 years. Ain't had no incidents to speak of or whatever. Okay. And if you're good enough to be an assistant coach on a team, okay, then your merit should decide whether or not you're the head coach, as opposed to somebody bringing up stuff from 20 years ago. All right. So I find that a tad bit odd. He was not uncomfortable. You'll have to figure out how I know this. He was not uncomfortable with Damian Lillard recommending him. He was honored that Damian Lillard would recommend him for that job. Now, Neil O'Shea is running the show in Portland. Okay, and he finally decides to get rid of Terry Stotts, and all of a sudden you hear these candidates, and conveniently these stories come leaking out. Max, now you know me. I'm a very, very busy man, like I said, until you require my attention and ask me to, and essentially force me to look into stuff. I have better things to do, but now this got my attention because I want to know why. I want to know why, and all of a sudden, you understand, a name like Jason Kidd comes out, and we start hearing about all of these things that we all knew, but nobody talked about. And every single time he comes up for a head coaching job, that's the only time somebody says, wait a minute now this man's employed. Ain't like he ain't been unemployed. He's employed in the NBA.
Yeah. Like it's okay for him to be an assistant. It's not okay for him to be a head coach.
Real quick, the way I read him saying he was uncomfortable was, it just sounds to me like maybe the Lakers job might be available before too long, and maybe he would be considered for that.
It could be, but I doubt it. But that's not it. He was not uncomfortable. He was not uncomfortable.
Let me say this. I'd love to see Sam Cassell. You always talk about the paucity of African-American head coaches. Well, if you go to retreads, guys who've already had jobs, you're not entering any fresh blood in there. Why not a guy who's paid his dues in the assistant ranks, Sam Cassell, a champion as a player, as a top assistant coach, get his name in there. And I really like that idea of Sam Cassell.
Yep.
And
So do I.
yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jason Kidd, just so you know, Jason Kidd with Sam Cassell, where their strength comes in, particularly with Jason Kidd, why the Lakers were so interested in him, it was Jason Kidd that developed Giannis. He's big on player development, him and his team. When you play with Jason Kidd or you play for Jason Kidd, you get better as a talent. Yusuf Nurkic, just a thought. Just a thought.
You give Dame whatever coach he wants.
Yes, you
Dame
do.
Lillard says, I want this
Neil
coach.
O'Shea.
Who would you want, Kidd or Cassell, if you had a choice? Booker looking like a man amongst boys with the Joker at MVP state of mind. The Suns Nuggets semifinals tips off tonight in their 3 meetings in the regular season. The Nuggets have the edge 2-1, but every game brought the action. One game was tied by 3 points in regulation. One went to OT. The remaining one went to double OT. So, fellas, it looks like we're in for a good time in the West, but there might be a changing of the guard in the NBA. The 8 conference semifinalists have combined for 5 titles total, with the 76ers being the last team to win it all. That was in 83. None have won a title since the playoffs expanded to 16 teams in 84. Max Kellerman up first. Who wins this series? Talk to me.
I think the Nuggets win it. It's really tough to call. I think the Nuggets win it. And let me just say, before I say anything else, it's heartbreaking that Jamal Murray can't play on this Denver team. I think that if Jamal Murray was on this Denver team, they get out of the West. I'm confident in saying that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's a huge hit. Now, they happen to have a very deep roster of guards who can play, right? And so it makes up for some of it. But the number one thing, Porter Jr. can shoot the lights out, and Aaron Gordon was a great addition to the team. Jokic is the best player in every series he plays. He'll be the best player in this series, too. And by the way, what do I mean by best? He's the MVP of the regular season. Last time I checked, as you would say, Stephen A., Chris Paul and Devin Booker played in the regular season. They weren't the MVP. Jokic was. And now we're in the postseason. And if Jokic was the type of dude who you're like, yeah, but he's limited what he can do in the postseason. Sometimes bigs are like that. You need another star with him. But this dude can shoot from the outside, can pass as well as any big man who ever lived, can take the ball up if you need him to. That he remains the same MVP guy in the postseason as he is in the regular season. That makes him the best player in the next series, and I think this thing goes 7, and I think the Joker wins it.
I think it goes 7 as well. But a 7th game would be in Phoenix. And I'm going with the Phoenix Suns to win this series in 7 games. It's tight. It's dicey. Jokic is Jokic. DeAndre Ayton's going to have to be ready. They're relatively small without DeAndre Ayton. I get all of that. I see the elevation of Michael Porter, who I'm very, very impressed with. I like this kid a lot. I think that he's a future star in this league. I said, but I will tell you that when I look at the floor generalship of a Chris Paul, assuming he's healthy, I look at Cameron Payne, who I've been very impressed with coming off the bench and being as active as he is. Yep. Devin Booker is Jamal Murray plus, potentially. We've seen Devin Booker. He's a star. We know what he brings to the table, okay? So you got Devin Booker, and you got Bridges, and you got Ayton, and you got CP3, and Payne, and Johnson. I'm looking at them, and I'm saying, excuse me, I could see this going back and forth, back and forth. But could I see this finishing in 7 with the Phoenix Suns pulling it out? Yes, I do.
It just kills me that Jamal Murray's not in the series.
Yeah.
I would not pick Phoenix if Jamal Murray were healthy.
When I think back to the bubble and the first round, him and Donovan Mitchell going back and forth, that's how you get a rivalry in the NBA. Like, you have 2 young guys around the same level on the way up doing that. Jamal Murray, I just want to remind people, last year had a game of 50 points and no turnovers in the playoffs. Like 50 points and no turnovers, and you're a point guard. It was unbelievable. But Campazzo, you could throw different guys' names out there. There's, we talk about playoff Rondo. Stephen A., I'm here to tell you, there's playoff Rivers. Austin Rivers in the playoffs.
Yes, he is.
He really has a knack for stepping up. And when I think of where he came from, early in his career, it's the worst pick and roll point guard you ever want to see in the NBA. He had a name because the Rivers name, everything was like, and he was a great high school prospect. It's like, oh my God, he's terrible.
Hit that
He
big
ain't
time
terrible
game winning
anymore.
shot against Duke against North Carolina, too, which is one of the most beautiful scenes you'll ever see with Doc Rivers and his children in attendance, and Rivers hit that game winning shot against North Carolina. I mean, that's what
He's got it in him.
is made of.
He's
right
got
there.
it in him. It's in the bloodlines.
Right.
But like he went from he is a real threat in the playoffs. And you look at Aaron Gordon, the way that trade is working out.
Aaron Gordon.
Jokic knows just how to use him. It's going to be a great series.
Jokic is special.
Absolutely.